Mr. Josh sharing audio again and doubling up that intro.
Oh, I want to. Let's do it again because I'm just kidding.
It's like it doubled again too. So
I know.
if we had tried to make the fix, it didn't work.
I always need to do it separately. It's because I'm already sharing screen. So my bad. We'll get a double dose of the intro. There you go.
What is up, Nerfherders? Welcome back to the show. We are here again, and consistently, I might add, we've got some stuff that's gone down. We're far enough into some shows. We're far enough into some content, and there's a new trailer. Let's talk about it. I don't know where I was going with that, but we'll just kick things off. Josh, how you doing?
I'm doing, man. I'm tired.
You got NYCC coming super fucking quick.
Yeah, flying out in the morning. Been spending all weekend slowly packing, like trying not to stress, but trying to like remember everything. I'm still gonna forget something. I know I am, but I think I'm ready. So, yeah. I found out that we have to wear masks at New York Comic Con, so I got me this mask and a V for Vendetta one when this gets old. So, yeah, I'm ready. I think I'm ready.
I'm a little surprised that they're still doing that, but at the same time, not.
Well, the difference between this year and last year is a vaccine requirement is no longer. However, I wonder if the masks are because they removed the cap. New York Comic Con 2022.
They're going to be packed in there this year, too.
Attendance cap. I didn't hear whether or not they did. So, well, yeah, I haven't heard that. So maybe it's full. It could, if it's full people, then it's going to be 250,000 people there. So I'll wear a mask. That's fine.
All right. Well, either way, hoping that you're being safe. I want to experiment with something super fast, actually. What does this look like from over here? Not great. I don't like that.
You don't like Guitar Center in the background?
No, it doesn't work. Shut up. So we've had a few shows on the like. Are we talking shows? Are we far enough in at that point? We wanted to talk about Andor, right?
We want to talk about Andor because we haven't talked about that yet. We're 4 episodes in. We wanted to talk about some other stuff, but yeah, you want to start there?
Well, we had some Marvel news. We've got a trailer. You know, let's watch the Black Panther trailer because I've been waiting. Like, I specifically held off on that one because we were going to talk about it today.
Okay, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever officially released their trailer, not the teaser trailer.
Full on official.
You have not watched it yet.
2 minutes and 10 seconds. I'm gonna try and sync up with you here, so we're gonna need to count it down.
Okay, I'm gonna do a practice. It's gonna be 3, 2, 1, click. Okay, that's how we're gonna do it. All righty.
All right, I'm in.
All right, 3, 2, 1, click. It's a big mask.
There's somebody at my door. Now is not the time.
I was gonna say I don't remember that sound in the trailer.
Only the most broken people.
Love the music. Love it.
Again, killer.
Years.
Look at that throne.
His people did not call him general or king. They called him Kukul Khan, the feather serpent god. Killing him
Flapping
will risk eternal war.
He's coming for the surface world.
We know what you whisper.
We've lost
The protector. Now is our time to strike.
Yo.
them who we are.
Here we go. Tickets on sale now.
Dude, like they had a poster that came out. I think it's Shuri. I think Shuri's in that. I think Shuri's in that suit.
Oh, it's all but confirmed. I mean, the dots on the mask are the
Yeah,
same dots that are on her
It looks
face.
a lot like her ceremonial.
Yeah, I think the
That was
question.
also like there was no dude in that suit. That would have been a
That is-
really
that
skinny
is-
dude to be in that suit.
Yeah, I think the question is not is Shuri gonna be Black Panther? Is Shuri the only one gonna be Black Panther in this movie? Because let's not
That's a
forget the
good question,
line.
yeah.
Both of my children are gone or dead or I've lost my family or whatever she said. So, and this is apparently, how long is this movie? This is apparently a very long movie.
Good.
Wakanda
Good.
Forever runtime. This is a 2 hour and 41-minute movie where Black Panther runtime was 2 hours and 15 minutes. So this is an extra 25 minutes. A lot can happen in 25 minutes
For sure.
So who knows? She could be the final Black Panther. She could be a Black Panther. Something goes wrong, and thus the speech. Who knows? But it looks good. Do you want to see it again, or do you want to just play it in the background?
I mean, I don't really have too much to say, unfortunately. Like, without being able to get in there and see it, like obviously it looks like there's going to be a lot of Ironheart.
Yeah, Ironheart's definitely going to be, and we know there's a thing coming for that.
Right.
Definitely looks like the stuff. I'm not playing it with sound. Definitely looks like the stuff from the comics where the warring countries and Namor floods Wakanda. Definitely looks like he's flooding Wakanda. I didn't realize Wakanda was that close to the ocean, but I guess we never got like a full geography of Wakanda.
I loved his line here too. I might butcher it, but it said only broken people can be good leaders. Like, I really like that. It's like somebody who hasn't been down in the dirt isn't going to be able to like bring people out of it or anything like that. So like that's a good line. And and I say this every single time there's a Marvel movie out there. It's just like the movie is only going to be as good. The hero is only going to be as good as the villain. And the best villains are the ones that aren't straight up villains. Like they're people who you can side with, or like you want to see their goal like come to fruition, but it's necessary. Like the methodology just isn't quite the way it was, which is why Killmonger was such a good villain. It's like you understood his motivation, you understood his anger, and in a lot of aspects, like every aspect of it, and he was like really justified, and you want to feel connected to that villain. And I feel like they're going this route already because Namor is already looking like he's got like a legit, I mean, if they go with the comic book, he's got a very legit reason to be pissed off at the Wakandans. So,
I have this book from when I was a kid. This was my dad's book. I don't know if you can see it. Here you go. It's called The Greatest Comic Book Heroes. This came out in what year did this come out in? This came out in doesn't say the year, so never mind. Anyway, this book. I grew up reading this book. This was like my first introduction to comics. It kind of gives, in the back, it gives like the first pages of certain comics, like the Spectre and Superman and Batman. And one of the ones is Prince Namor, the Submariner. And even in this comic, he is seen to be different than the people that he lives among. He looks different. He has those little wings on his ankle. He's going up and causing problems on the surface. He's not really a hero. I think eventually he becomes a hero, but he's definitely, they don't paint him as a villain either. They just paint him as this Avenger of the Sea. And so I have no doubt that by the end of this movie, he might be considered an anti-hero or hero of sorts. But it is interesting how they're keeping with the ankle feathers and stuff like that. They're changing other parts of his character, but a lot of people are like, "What's up with those ankle wings?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's straight out of the comics," and they're actually doing it. Wow.
And looking here, it seems that they're
Nope. Why am I doing that on the screen?
they're going to continue on with like the first mutant side of him, which is good.
Yeah, I know. He said that in a recent interview that he is a mutant in this movie. So whether or not he meant that or not, this is interesting. How he flies, he's got that.
I love that. It's like he's triple jumping. He's just jumping on air. I love that. Like,
and he's got speed to it too.
Yeah, he does. He's really moving.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. That's a good shot of what's it called? Ironheart. Look at that. That looks neat. It looks less defined as the Iron Man suit, but it looks cool. You got these boot things going on. You got the thrusters in the back.
I imagine that this suit is probably her Mark II. It's like I imagine that the Mark I's still looking pretty rough. Like this might be an upgrade that she gets the chance to work on once she gets to Wakanda.
Yeah, because
gets the resources of Wakanda.
We've seen a picture of what she looks like in the show, and it looks a lot more refined. I'm trying to look it up right quick. Yeah, this is her in the show. Oops. Yeah, this is her in the suit in the show. So it looks a lot more Iron Man-esque / almost like Buzz Lightyear. I don't mean to joke on it, but yeah, so that's cool. I still like the idea that Namor can come up here and breathe on the surface, but apparently not all of his warriors can. They have to wear this like water mask thing, which is neat. But yeah, he's
also the only one who can fly. Like none of the other Atlanteans were able to do that, which is probably where they're going to really focus, like the mutation side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like they're wearing that mask underwater too. So I don't know.
Yes, I don't know what that means. Yeah.
That looks so good.
It does.
Such a good shot.
And seeing this
so good.
Seeing this on my computer instead of my phone, I can see a little more of the gold accents and definitely the same dots that are on her face, and you could tell it's a female form. It looks pretty slick. So yeah, that's exciting. It's exciting. Now, it could not be Shuri. It could be any of the other characters. I know if I were to choose who I wanted it to be, I wouldn't necessarily choose her. I would prefer it to be who's the leader of the guard. Okoye. I would. She's like just so
Denai.
Yeah, from
I would destroy her last name. I'll admit that firsthand.
Yeah, but she's I mean, unless we see that Shuri's been doing like all this training or something, the last movie we saw her in, she had some like little hand gizmos that didn't last very long, and she could have been doing some training on the side. But she just like Okoye is a warrior already. She could take this suit and be a force to be reckoned with.
Well, and that might be the case if your theory is correct that there's more than one who's taking up the mantle. Like it might not be a ceremonial position anymore, as if there is just the one. Like it might be a situation where this is what we need. But in every poster, so I just Googled Wakanda Forever poster, and in every poster, Shuri is like front and center or like a main piece of it.
They're not even trying to hide it, which might be a misdirect.
Yeah, there's one poster here where she is not like the centerpiece of it, but she's still like one of the biggest characters on it. And so it seems weird that they wouldn't go in that direction at this point, because they would keep it with like that level of family royalty.
Mm-hmm. And they released a lot of these posters today. Not all of them, but
and that was the first thing that I saw before the trailer came out or anything like that. It was the IMAX poster for it. And she is very prominent in that IMAX poster. So
I saw that one. I really like this one. This reverse one
looks really good.
That's cool. Is this the? I'm guessing this is the one you were the IMAX.
Very yellow. She's big up there. Namor's hiding behind the blade.
That one.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Screen X one is really cool too. They got a purple one for Screen X. That one's really cool.
Yeah.
You got a lot of stuff going on here. The real 3D one is super stylistic. That one looks crazy. Yeah.
Again, she's the centerpiece.
She's very much the centerpiece. So I don't think anybody's surprised that she would be it. But I can't imagine. Well, I don't know. I'm not the one who's writing it, but it's a long movie, so things could happen. Yep. Not saying that she shouldn't be, Black Panther by any means, but
honestly, I remember her getting into some shit, like her actress getting into some shit recently.
Well,
somewhat recently.
I meant story wise. Yeah, if we're gonna talk about politics,
I think
the movie.
I think story wise, it makes the most sense because it was always a member of the royal family.
Yeah,
and she's the last surviving member of the royal family as far as the children go, and like so, we're gonna have a queen regent, and then Shuri.
Derby agrees that it's Shuri. Yeah, we have no doubt. However, didn't they burn all the flowers? Didn't Killmonger burn them all?
She might not have the she might not have the inherent super strength or something like that. It might be something that she built into the suit. But yeah, who knows?
I'm just here for Andor. I agree. I'm here for Andor as well. Do we want to talk about Deadpool last and get into Andor, or go into Deadpool next, since we're talking about Marvel stuff?
I don't know. I don't really have much to say about Deadpool because it was just it was like this was kind of honestly like if I expected Wolverine or any of them to come back in any way, it was going to be this, just because of like the stuff that had been teased between them in the second Deadpool movie.
Mm-hmm.
And given the history of Deadpool and Wolverine in the same movie, just from the X-Men Origins movie, which tanked hard, and it should have.
Mm-hmm.
Like this seemed like the obvious move that Ryan Reynolds would have made to kind of like reconcile all of that by bringing it into the MCU. And also Hugh Jackman was on the record in several iterations around the end of his time playing as Logan, where he said that if he was going to play Logan again, if he was going to play the character again, he would want it to be in the MCU. Like that was something that would have brought him back. And so when this announcement came out, yes, I was hyped up, but at first I was also like, I also don't know if this is true, because it again, it seemed like the obvious thing. Like it's the thing that everybody like that I would have asked for had I been in charge of like all this stuff. It was like, this is almost too good to be true.
Yeah.
Like this almost makes too much sense.
Well,
and then it turned out to be right. It was like, hey, this is actually how it's going. I was just like, oh, okay, shit. And then more and more stuff kept on popping up there. But
we ain't judging Deadpool 3. What did you think of Deadpool 1 and 2, Derby? I just want to get your thoughts on that. I mean,
1 was better than 2.
We've seen
big time.
We've seen Deadpool. I love Deadpool Part 2. We've seen them nonchalantly do time travel. We've seen them nonchalantly do go back and clearing up the timeline. I could imagine this being a nonchalant multiple universes thing, where this is how he comes over to the MCU, and he brings Hugh Jackman's Wolverine with him temporarily, but then it ends.
I don't see him being like a permanent spot.
No, because we've heard about them looking to cast a younger Wolverine, and
Taron Egerton was actually
Taron Egerton,
one of the big noms, and I was on board. I was like, you know what, yeah, I can take that.
He looks freaking amazing. In Blackbird, that dude is ripped. I mean, it could be good. So I could see this as kind of like a farewell thing, but as a final nod to him in the MCU. And
I liked Daniel Radcliffe was also a possibility, because they wanted to have like kind of like the short, hairy, kind of like stumpy guy, to have it be comic accurate. It was like, yeah, you know what, I could actually see that too. I don't think that's going to be the way that they go, but
I mean, I think either way it's going to be fun, and I think I think if they do pull this off, it could be a good distraction because yes, Kevin Feige said that Deadpool 3 will be R, but let's not kid ourselves. It's not going to be hard R. It's going to be
No.
R. It's going to be R in a way that's
It's going to
acceptable
be
to
diet
Disney.
rated R.
Yeah. And to be fair, that's fine. I thought I was actually disappointed with Deadpool 1. I liked the plot, I liked the movie, but when they were like, this is gonna be hard R, it wasn't really hard R for me. It was a lot of F-bombs, and that's what really secured the rating. Yeah, there was some
You
violence.
can only have two in a PG. You can only have two in a
Right.
PG-13, and they can't be referenced in any sexual manner.
Right. And I really liked Deadpool 2. I thought that was fantastic. I liked the inclusion of more X-Men stuff. Colossus as a main character or as a side character was fantastic.
Yeah, he just did.
There was a lot of cool stuff in that. So if they took that same energy and then threw in actual Hugh Jackman Wolverine instead of just a People's Magazine Hugh Jackman stapled to Deadpool's face, I think they could be really fun. So I love how they were just like, hey, you want to be in this film? And he was just hanging out at his house or something. Yeah, sure.
I think it's going to be slightly more than a cameo, and that's about it. Like,
it could be. It very could.
Maybe not even slightly more, but
I mean, they're certainly not selling it with this, but I could see it being more than a cameo and a send off to the character as well.
I don't know if you're gonna get a better send off than Logan, man. Like,
no, I know that. Maybe not a send off. That's not what I meant, because Logan is fantastic. I meant there was a long time that they were like, hurry up and bring the X-Men to the MCU so that this man could officially be a part of the MCU. Because if there's any X-Men that deserves recognition by the main MCU, by the pros, it's like somebody coming up from the minor leagues to the pros. It should be Hugh Jackman. And so maybe not a send-off, but an official recognition of his tenure and then pass the baton. But either way, I'm excited about it.
I'm cautiously optimistic at this point. Like, I don't want to.
I doubt Ryan Reynolds would be a part of a project for Deadpool that isn't decent. I just can't imagine him being a part of it. He fought so hard for the quality of this franchise. So
big time.
But let's do what Derpy Gaming wants and get over to Andor. We have been wanting to talk about this for a while. It's 4 episodes in. You were a little delayed, so I wanted to wait till you at least saw the first 4 episodes, and you and Cece knocked those out this weekend, so we can talk about it.
We jumped in there pretty cool. Like, we were actually caught up on the release day for episode 4.
Okay.
We got it was a delayed reaction to start the show, but like, we're all caught up. Like, we're kind of back on schedule. We had some family stuff kind of slowed down our jump into everything. That we got a lot of stuff to catch up on. We're coming towards the end of the year. Everything's getting weird. I like the show so far. So we watched the first 2 episodes, and then I think that was just like a couple days before episode 4 had come out. And in the first 2 episodes, I was like, okay, I can understand why some people are kind of bored by the show, because it's not quite as like ridiculously action packed as they might have expected. But it was exactly what I had expected. Like, we're leading into a very espionage, very cloak and dagger kind of thing, very like underground criminal world even. And that was what I expected, and that's exactly what we got. The visuals, man, just fuck me. The visuals are good in this, and that was like kind of like the main selling point for a lot of people. It sounded like it seemed like there was a really big push for how good to watch it simply alone for how good the cinematography is, and just kind of like ride that until things really start picking up into like a real Star Wars story. But it felt like that to me already just out of those first 2 episodes. And then we watched the 3rd episode. I was like, okay, this is a great little kind of like closing arc to these first 2 episodes. So we had the first episodes kind of like laying a base, And then we had the second episode where it was like, okay, the tension's really starting to get real. Like we understand everybody's motivation at this point, or at least we have like enough of an idea to where like you're able to go into speculation territory and then not be ridiculously disappointed by what happens, because it kind of falls in line with what a lot of those theories would have gone with. And then that third episode comes in, it's like, boom, here we go. Like this is where the real shit's going on. And at scale, it was really well put together. It was like, hey, yeah, we've just got a few soldiers in here. It's not this crazy end of the world fight. It's like these guys are like a fugitive apprehension team essentially at this point. They do not know that they're going in to fight like a crazy, like, well, honestly, like he's scrappy and lucky at this point is what it really seems like. He's not like this hardened fighter or anything like that. He's just a survivor. And I really like that tone as it's going through. And then they put kind of like a nice cap to that. I feel like that 3-episode arc, obviously there's going to be characters that carry over. But they kind of put it in a good place at the end of that third episode. And then they're opening up to like the next chapter of the story. And given that we have 12 episodes here, I'm like, this is good. Like we're going to have a lot of time to grow with this character who I was already a fan of because of Rogue One. I'm just like, right now I'm in the phase where I'm like, okay, I'm on board, but will they stick the landing? That's my only concern, because that seems to be where these Disney Plus shows have been fucking dropping it for the most part. So,
well, the difference between this and the previous Disney Plus shows is that this is helmed by Gareth Edwards, and Gareth Edwards is at least in the Star Wars community is known for Rogue One, and Rogue One is kind of universally loved as the one Star Wars movie that Disney has gotten right so far. There's things about the sequel trilogy that people like, but if you want a solid film, the best one that Disney has put out, it's not Solo, it's not Return of the Rise of the Skywalker, it's not The Last Jedi, it's Rogue One, because it was a tight story, because there was character development, because it didn't, I mean, yes, there was Vader in there, but it didn't over rely on tropes or whatever. And it was good. It was good. It was a great small little, ooh, this is the war part of Star Wars. And it had Cassian Andor in it, who everybody was like, you know, this kind of reminds me how we used to regard Han Solo as the scoundrel, as the rougher side of the rebellion, you know. And I like that somebody was like, let's roll the dice and give this guy a series. But it's not just about him. It's clearly the pebbles leading up to the rebellion. We're going to follow multiple people. And even if not all of the people in the first couple episodes are like reoccurring characters, we're seeing what one of the bad guys called fermenting. Pockets of rebellion are fermenting, and I really like that. And I don't care if it takes a little while, but I think I was trying to tell you that I think, you know, they released the first 3 episodes not really because they delayed the show a month. It's because it just felt right for those to release at one time. They could have put it in one supersized episode. But I think they want the episode count to be higher than the normal shows. But if they had released those individually, I think it probably wouldn't have been received very well, because it does feel like a mini 3-episode movie, you know, introduction.
I don't think it has anything to do with them padding an episode count or anything like that, because each one of them has been like the right length for an episode of a show. That like that's the big thing.
But it could have been like an opening movie almost. It was
right. Yeah, it was this was like
to watch together.
This was like a really nice palate cleanser for like all the other Star Wars and all the other Disney like adult level Disney content that we've been getting so far. It's like, hey, we're gonna go back to like what you guys liked about Rogue One, is that it didn't feel Disney-fied. Like, I mean, a dude got murked in the fucking head, like in the first few minutes of that movie. And
just like in Rogue One. It's like, it's like,
this is what,
in case you forgot about this
we
guy.
needed. This is what we needed. Like he's
Mhm.
had like, and now it's like, okay, he's done this before, but there was such a parallel this time because when he did it this time, he really didn't want to. He didn't want to have to either.
No.
And he had to like, and he spent a couple episodes like dealing with it, but also like having to like justify it in his mind. Whereas in Rogue One, he did it and he was just like, I'm done. All right, cool. You're out. You can't live.
Should have. I don't think we've covered too much, but we should put this on. We're talking spoilers, folks, for those that didn't figure that out.
I mean, I'm talking about the first episode. Like,
I know.
fucking, like,
if you haven't, I love the intelligence behind this show because when you think of bad guys in Star Wars, you think of stormtroopers and you think of the Sith. And what did we get? We got these guys, and they don't even
private
look,
security.
They don't even look
security.
Like this could have. If this could have been any other show. This could have been any other rebellion against the overlords sci-fi show. And if you didn't know this was a Star Wars show, you might not. You know, if you came into this super cold and you're not a big Star Wars fan, you might not know. I mean, it's done so well, and I like how. You know, in certain times, the Empire wasn't as over the shoulder as it used to be. They contracted shit out. You know, this was a company town that these guys looked over. And yeah, they were connected and they reported to the Empire, but you didn't see a bunch of stormtroopers. You saw these guys in little, what is that, rust, orange and blue get-ups, you know? And then in episode 4, we see them getting their ass chewed out by, who they report to in the Empire. But I loved that this was the intro. You know, we get these guys, which is just a little bit more lore into this time before the big rebellion. And I just love that. I thought that was fantastic writing and an intelligence that they don't have to spoon feed you, you know. We didn't have to see the Empire until episode 4, but we knew that they worked for the Empire.
And I love that we were going back to. It was like the big theme around this show is that rebellion like bubbling up.
Yeah.
And one thing that was always kind of like one thing that always sort of bothered me is that in every piece of Star Wars media, it always seemed like it was either you were either the rebellion or you were the Empire. Like it didn't like there was no like black and white in between or anything like that. These guys in particular, like yes, they were like more Empire-esque, but they fucking like they aren't happy that the Empire's here either. Like this, like they had been running things the way that they had been, and basically like they were probably doing it before the Empire even came in as well. Like this company town was probably part of the Republic as well. And when they came in and the new regime showed up, they were just like, okay, well, as long as we can, whatever we got to do to keep things business as usual. Like they didn't want anything to change. And then these workers slowly started, like, it wasn't like an overnight thing. Yeah. It was like it was a really gradual change. And having that illustrated is really good because what we're going to see over the course of this show, this is going to be a big prediction of mine, is that we're going to like, this is just like a small sect of the rebellion. And I don't mean by the Rebel Alliance, like this is a rebellion of its own. And then we're going to see kind of like forces get joined up, like Saw Gerrera from Rogue One. He's obviously off on his own little tangent. I don't think he's connected to these people at all. We see, again, spoilers continued, but we see Mon Mothma kind of going more on like the political side, the politically supported side of the rebellion, sort of like the remnants of the Imperial Senate, which is something that we heard at the beginning of A New Hope. Was like the very beginning of A New Hope when they were having that roundtable meeting with Grand Moff Tarkin and all them. They're talking about like how like the final remnants of the Imperial Senate are finally done. And it's like the Empire is like the sole ruler. And it's like, so, and all of this happening in just like a span of a few years. It's like, it's a terrific illustration of how, like, I don't want to like jump back to it, but it's almost Hitlerian, you know, like Hitler didn't like come in and then immediately swap everything over to like this horrible fascist regime that he had done. Like it was a very gradual process. and it was a slow burn, and that's what we're seeing here is like the Empire. Yes, it turned into a galactic empire in a pretty dramatic shift, but even Palpatine had been building that up over like a long period of time, kind of consolidating that power, paying off the right people, and then the movie is like, all right, it's a galactic empire now, and then the next piece of content that you see is like from A New Hope is, all right, this is an established empire. There's no fucking with it, and there's nothing else out there. Like you're either outside of law, you're either outside of the law as a scumbag or rebellious or rebel, or you're part of the empire. And we're going to see that the empire didn't just take over. I mean, yes, they took over, but like it wasn't just like a snap of the finger. Like, okay, we're going to slowly start taking things over. And I feel like this dude is turning into a rebel himself at this point. Like his whole life is just being turned around at this point. Like I can see him being kind of like in the same side of it, if not.
I don't know where we're gonna go with this character. I hope he doesn't turn into a rebel. I would be fine if we're done with this character, honestly, because there's so much other stuff that's going to go on in this show. And I believe they've said that this is going to cover multiple years as well. So there might be time jumps.
There's two seasons.
Yeah.
There's two seasons of this show.
Right. But what I do like about this is that they're showing, like what you just said, this isn't an overnight, they're all bad guys thing. They're showing that there's people that work for these companies. We see in this security company, there's people eating, there's ramen noodles and talking about
blue noodle. The blue noodles was so fucking cheeky.
Can I get
blue milk, blue noodles?
Right. The other guy was like, is he allowed to sign off for overtime? You know, it's not like these people were handed a contract and said, will you work for the bad guys? And they all said yes. And then, in fact, you got this dude and you got his overexcited, head of secure. I don't know what his title was. But if you look at it just from their point of view, two of their people got murdered. They don't have a video. They don't have eyewitness accounts. I mean, this guy was the reasonable one that said, yeah, they had a bad attitude and they were probably shaking this down. But these dudes were just like, hey, they were murdered. We should go after the criminals. And that kind of devotion and, willpower with the wrong person supervising them could turn into the empire. And so I like that we're seeing these type of people in employ in the beginnings. And then it gradually turns into what we know to be the empire of the original trilogy.
I have two predictions for his character. One of them is he's pissed off at the he's even further pissed off at like any sect of rebellious nature, and he realizes that the empire is actually doing what he thinks they should be doing to squash it. Like they're taking like that affirmative action that he was willing to do. And so he becomes more radicalized and he joins up with an Imperial side of things. Or I can see them going the Disney route where he's just like, okay, well, the Imperials were like completely fine with being complacent. They're like pushing this under the rug as like, we just fucked up and that's the end of it. Like, we're not going to follow it any further. And like, so he starts to harbor like a bunch of resentment towards the Empire themselves. And before we know it, he's like being a part of the cause, if not directly related to Cassian. I don't see that one quite as much. I can see it happening, but I really think that he's going to end up joining up with the Imperial regime, like full on. Or just becoming outside, like his own level of vigilante or something like that, and trying to use Cassian Andor as a way to like buy himself back into like a position of favor or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But yeah, I could see him getting, we've already seen that once he's like, even when told to back down, if he can convince himself to disobey his superiors.
Yep. I love I recognized the middle dude, the dude that was his boss. I recognized him from somewhere. I realized that he was like the rapey dude from Braveheart.
Oh.
Like he was the guy who took the first wife as part of.
Oh, that's right.
That came out.
Right. Yeah. Wow. What a callback. Jeez.
It was so weird. It was just like, it was his voice. It was his voice. I remember because I remember being annoyed by it in Braveheart. I was just like, his voice sounds so fucking familiar. Where's that from?
So
Here's my noble right.
I want to talk about episode 4, but I want to finish off the cap with Derpy had a good content. Let's see. Derpy comment. I like the camera shot POVs of the characters and the emotions and reactions. That's what's really caught me off guard. The acting is done really well. And then he said the camera shots at the end of episode 3, the aftermath of their choices. It was great. There was this swelling music and just
real.
And these people in the town, you know, we've got his friend, we've got the girl that he had a previous relationship with. We've got her boyfriend who's jealous, who gets killed. These people make small choices to help their friend, and then they see these people take over their town in order to hunt one of their own down, and they make little choices that have a big impact on the day, and then they're forced to just think about what this could, you know, what this means, and it's that fermenting. And yes, what Derpy said, the camera shots of them dealing with their choices, I feel like that's just going to build up. You know, it's going to build up. These people they weren't in the rebellion. They didn't really care. They were part of the job. They were working, you know, and then shit goes down, and, you know, one bad day can turn a person into something they weren't planning on being. And in this case, it might turn them into rebels. And I thought that was a powerful way to end that episode 3.
I think the only dude who was okay with his decisions and didn't really feel any consequences was that yard worker who that metal scrapyard worker who'd like tied the ship down.
I don't know. He was in the bar drinking, and he looked. It didn't look like he was like, "Oh my god, I fucked up," but he looked like, "Man, I just made a huge decision." And
I think it was almost like, if I get caught, I'm going to be drunk when it happens.
He wasn't like cheering though. He wasn't like, "Yeah, F you." He was sitting alone in a bar like, "Holy shit."
He took a side.
I took a side. Yeah, and that was cool. I think that was a really neat thing to show. It was a small
that was
thing
another
to show.
big thing, is that we're not talking about like big heroes or anything like that. We're not seeing any Jedi. I hope we don't fucking see any Jedi in this show. Like, these are everyday people who are being pushed down by an oppressive regime and
making the choice themselves,
doing like the little things that they could to push things forward. It's like, whether or not Bix even knew that the guy that she was talking to was actually like really pushing some big rebellion, as far as she knew, he's just a fence who was willing to buy like stolen gear and not ask too many questions.
Yeah.
It's like everything just kind of like got a little bit too far out of hand for them, and now they're dealing with that. And it's going to be interesting to see, like, if we actually get to see those decisions come through. The only thing that I didn't like was her boyfriend. Like, that guy was kind of an idiot.
He was definitely possessive, and he didn't like
yeah, but like, she's hurt and he's like standing there, and all the guards are like, "Hey, don't come here, like we're hurting people." And he's just like, "Okay, well, you've all got guns on me, so I'm just gonna sprint straight at you and see what happens." Like, that just like,
but that also speaks to fear of the Empire. You know, he saw this bulletin and he didn't think twice to call the cops on this dude. You know, he was just like, "Hey, they're the authorities." And then he runs up on him like you would think regular, like they're here to serve me. You know, they're the police. They're servants of the people. And then quickly learns that's not the case. And
yeah, but it makes it look like it's his fault. Like, because like again, this is kind of like whenever something in the news pops up about a cop killing somebody innocent. It's like, we didn't see that route. Like, they gave him like clear orders. It's like, "Hey, don't come up here, don't do anything." And then he sprints at them, and they reacted accordingly.
Well, he was naive. He was naive, and he died because he was naive.
But if you want to push the narrative continuously, it's like, "Hey, these guys are not on our side. They're not the authorities. They're part of this. They're part of the problem." And been like, have him following orders, and they end up killing him anyway. But they were like the slightest discrepancy. But this guy,
he was also like running up on him because they had like slammed that girl's head into the wall while handcuffed, and she was bleeding all over the place. It wasn't like they were like being cool.
Yeah, but he didn't see that.
Sure.
Like, he's just there, saw her cuffed up. It's like, as far as he knew, like, if his thought was that they're part of the authorities, is like, she did something wrong, which he had already had suspicions of anyway.
Yeah.
It's like,
so that episode ends with Skarsgård and Andor. I don't remember Skarsgård's name. But him.
Did he give his name?
I don't know if he did or not, but he
know.
takes
I don't know if he
Cassian.
gave his.
He takes Cassian off planet, and I liked the parallel. I guess we didn't talk about this part of the first 3 episodes, but the young. I know who is he's. I know his name. I'm saying his name in the
Rayo.
show. My wife just came in to tell me that his name was Stellan Skarsgård. I know
Luthen Rayo.
Luthen Rayo. Okay.
Rael.
Did they say? They must have said that at some point in the thing. Before we talk about episode 4, I guess let's real quick. They did a little thing about young Cassian. I loved this. Sometimes it cut back on the wrong times, and I'm like, oh, don't cut back now. But I did like the story. I liked that we didn't know what they were saying, but we knew what they were saying. There was no subtitles for his race. I liked that they were all kids.
I thought there was something wrong with my TV at first. I was just like, did I was going in looking at subtitle settings. It's like,
I was checking the same thing. Yeah. Again, this is intelligent storytelling. They don't give you subtitles, but they know that you can figure it out. They don't tell you why there's all kids and no adults. But later on, there's a one of the controller guys is like, oh yeah, something about a mining incident gone bad, and no one's allowed to go there, and everybody died. Apparently, not everybody died because these kids were just hanging out on their own in the woods. We didn't need the whole backstory. We just got enough to know that these kids are living on their own. Cassian was one of the more interested, curious ones, and it led to him getting, kind of kidnapped, but also saved.
Kidnapped as far as he's concerned, and his tribe would be concerned. But yeah, like this isolated tribe wouldn't have known exactly what they're getting into, other than like that one outlier of the dude waking up and killing their leader.
And the folks that took him believed that tribe would be slaughtered by the time the Empire showed up and found their people dead.
And they're probably right.
Yeah.
Let's be fair.
I liked the cutting back and forth between those, and then that final shot of young Cassian looking up into space as the ship's taking off, and an older Cassian doing the same. Once again, being taken from what's comfortable to him into something new, and that was cool. That was cool storytelling.
It was weird that it was Petunia Dursley, though.
I know. That was small role, but it was fun. I mean, I liked it. It
was like, rather than having a kid dumped on her doorstep that she didn't want, she kidnapped a kid that she didn't want. Like, it's like super opposite.
It's redemption. It's redemption for her acting career.
Yeah, no kidding.
But going back, so episode 4 is definitely felt like the first episode in the next mini arc. We get a little bit more of this background on this guy. He's telling Cassian that he really didn't care about that part. He was there for him. We kind of got the hint in the first couple episodes that this guy's been asking to meet you. So he's wanted to meet Cassian. And clearly he's recruiting folks for something. And he has this side business where he's, selling antiques to rich people, but also working with Mon Mothma to rebel or something. Either way, I like him. He's not completely, general, let's go fight in the square. He's intelligent. He's doing it behind the scenes, and he definitely has a eat the rich complex, even though he is the rich, but it's fight the overseers type thing. I'm really intrigued by his character.
I really hope that they don't go a route to where he's like, the only reason I jumped into this is because the Imperials made it harder for me to make money or something like that. Like that'd be.
It doesn't seem that way. It seems
it doesn't seem that way. There's going to be something personal that kicks this off for him, and I imagine that it's probably going to be kind of gut wrenching.
What did Derpy say? The reaction of the head security guard, his choices were really interesting, and the aftermath of his choice happened in episode 4.
God, dude, he had to move in with his mom.
I know,
rough, dude.
That his face when everything goes bad and they blew up that speeder, it was like, oh, I fucked up, and I couldn't tell if it was fear or like fear that they might kill him for this, but it didn't feel like it was that. It didn't feel like it was that serious yet. But just I fucked up, and I'm I'm going to lose my job for this. I was
It
trying
seemed like
to
it
read
was
it.
more of an injury of his pride. Like,
Yeah.
like he had his first, like he wasn't quite ready for this, and they made that
No.
very clear,
No.
especially during like that awkward as fuck speech that he supposedly gave while they were in that dropship.
Mhm.
Like he was like his apprehension had kind of started there.
Yeah.
And he was second guessing himself the whole time they were actually putting the plan together when his like sergeant came up and like really pushed the envelope forward for it.
Mhm.
Like it was his like first real attempt at being in charge, and things went catastrophically wrong.
And he loses his job for it and has to move in with his mom.
Loses his job, loses everything, like having to jump back, which
Right.
is going to be a tremendous I think will be a tremendous motivator for him to try and find some way to bounce back, or another motivator to be like, I hate the Empire, like how could they blame me for that? Like,
But I wouldn't be surprised if that's the end of his story, because we're seemingly introduced to a replacement villain that is
I just
in the
don't know
same
why they would
predicament.
I just don't know why they would show him in episode 4 if like that was going to be the end of his characters. Like,
That's true.
it's like,
they
hey, the end of
actually
his
show him go home.
it's like,
and
hey, he
everything.
got fired at the end of at end of episode 3, he got fired. We're like, hey, we're done with you. Let's close this out. And then episode 4, they bring him back just to show him going home to his mom. It's like, okay, he's not done. Like, I don't think they're finished with his character. But he's doing a good job though. Like his acting was great.
I liked his acting.
Like I really
yeah.
like, so like I feel like it would be a waste. I think he is going to connect with her because
I
she
think
is going to
so.
continue investigating where that part is, because they still want it.
Yeah.
She
I think
wants to know
she's
what was
gonna-
going on. She wants to know
she's-
how it was stolen. Like
Right.
he is her main, like he's going to be like kind of like a helper for her at that point. And I think that's how he's going to gain his favor back in, to jump back into something, which is why I'm leaning more towards the Imperial route, like for his future.
Yeah.
But
she's basically him, but in the Empire, not for a subcontractor. She's young. She's brand new to her position. She's trying to go above and beyond her position. And again, just like with him, there's someone saying, hey, this ain't your job. Back off and do your thing. And, you're trying to go above and beyond and do all this stuff. You haven't even turned in your reports on time. So focus on that. And what does she do? She's like, I don't think that's the end of. She seems just as compelled as he did. And so I imagine, like you said, she'll seek him out, and he'll either be her secret, companion, or she'll bring him on. But again, it's a feeling of, there's some people that are just treating this like it's a corporate job. Like, don't work harder than you work, smarter, not harder. Don't sign up for things that's not in your job title. And then you got some other people who want to rise through the ranks, who want to embody what their rank stands for, and who want to, it's more to them than just a job. And I like that. I just like the feeling that they're not all drones, and they're not all Vaders. There's people in between that are working up the ranks, that are building this empire.
that was like another big thing that I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before. I wonder if I can find this link. Like I'm gonna dig for this thing. There was a piece of content that came out on Reddit a while back, and it was somebody recounting like the events of Star Wars from the bias of an Imperial textbook.
Oh, interesting.
And it was really interesting, kind of like seeing everything from like their perspective and how history would be written from their side. I've got to pull this up and send you the link. It was a really interesting read. And I can't spoil it for you in that regard either, because that would really suck.
Yeah, I'll read that. That sounds
But
fun. I can see the argument being made, that we aren't the bad guys. We're just the people trying to enforce peace. And, these people are just the rebels. They're not, they're rioters. They're standing in the way of progress. They're not the good guys, but I'd like to read that. There was something I did see come up on Twitter a lot, and I wanted to see if you agreed with this. A lot of people were saying, they were quoting a line from Rogue One in which Cassian said, I've been in this fight, or I've been fighting the Empire since I was 6 years old. And they're like, well, clearly the show doesn't show that. I don't see why not. I mean, we see him as a kid. We see him mad at the Empire for killing the girl that he had a crush on, and then getting enlisted, whether or not it was, he wanted to, but enlisted to kind of leave his planet and go do something else. I mean, it's a more broader sense. It's not like he had a gun at 6, but I don't see how that contradicts his statement, or what we've seen so far contradicts that statement.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think it was more just kind of like I think it was more of a clever way to kind of give like a little bit of like history on him.
Yeah.
Because they mentioned so much about his planetary history that there was like there was almost a call to kind of like see what was going on. And also like in the first episode, he had mentioned looking for his sister. And and I don't believe that search is going to be over either. I feel like that's going to be another kind of like side arc for him.
Yeah, I don't think they just dropped that. Yeah.
And so like having a little bit of, I think we're going to see more of that, like from like another point of view, like after a few years, we're going to see him as more of like kind of like more into his teenage years.
Yeah.
And some information. I'm so sad that I can't find this post anymore. Like it's not in my saved section on Reddit anymore. I'm going to have to dig for that.
But it does seem like episode 4.
It was a nice like mirror moment kind of scene where it was all sort of like coming together. It was like a really clever way of doing it. Like they didn't spend a shitload of time on his origin story. It was like good. Like I don't need to know much about him as a kid. But seeing like that seed get planted of like hating that symbol and seeing like that Imperial symbol ahead of time. But
it was
because a lot of people forget it's like that Imperial symbol is just like a modification. Is like a very slight modification of like the clone trooper symbol that they used during the Republic battles.
Right.
So,
and you could tell he loved that girl. You could tell he had a crush on that girl. He painted his face the same way she did, and that rocked him when she wanted to be
close to her.
Yeah. So it seems like episode 4 is the start of the next mini arc, and it's going to be a heist arc with this group. And I'm telling you, I'm so glad that these are full-length episodes. Like I think they've all been 35 minutes or more, and they still feel like it's gonna be rough waiting from week to week. Because when this was over, I knew it was coming to an end, but I'm like, damn it, I want the next episode. Give it to me in 3-episode arcs. Give it to me in arcs instead of episodes. Because
it would be really cool to see it be like one act, first act, second act, third act for each episode as they go on. We're like, okay, let's see like a nice closeout. The second episode is going to be like really gearing up for this heist and like all of his learning and all of the prep, and then maybe something goes wrong as they begin that heist, and the third is just them getting out of it and kind of going from there, and then jumping into like another story. Like that'd be a good way to do it, actually.
But I did like how Skarsgård was like, okay, he's talking him up. I came here for you. Or I didn't come here for the part. And then we don't see him be like, I want you to lead the rebellion. We just see him drop him off with another team and say, I'll give you $100,000 or whatever he said if you go steal this thing. It's very small. It's not, you're the chosen one, Cassian Andor. Only you can lead the rebellion. It's very much, no, I think you have skills. I want to throw you in with this team and see what you do.
He was looking for somebody who really hated the Empire, who he could like. It's hard to trust people when you're dealing in the rebellion, like as we see. He was over scrutinizing just about everything about Mon Mothma, down to like having a new driver and being super ultra paranoid about that.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, he's gonna guard his mission as closely as he possibly can, and having a hired gun who also like very clearly hates the Empire as much as Cassian does. It's like, yeah, it's a good start. Like, it's a good way to be. And he also like holds some information over him, because he's definitely still going to be hunted. I'm sure that gets held over his head in one way or another as well.
But it seems we are building up to the Cassian we see in Rogue One, because in Rogue One, Cassian's across the table from Mon Mothma. He's part of the rebellion. He's revered in the rebellion. Here, we're like, he's just a part of a crew. We're going to take our time till we get there. And I like that a lot. I thought that was cool, not to just throw him in, not to be like, you're going to help us lead. You're a small part right now, and we're going to see him build up. And I thought that was great. And I really want to see this heist. And I really want to see the next episode. I think the first 4 episodes of this show, I've heard some people say this show was boring as shit, and it's the dumbest thing they've ever seen. And it's not Star Wars. And I'm like, it's not made for you. And this is Star Wars. This is the Star Wars I, as a child, did not understand that I wanted to see. I wanted to see,
No.
laser bolts. I wanted to see laser swords. I wanted to see big star battles and explosions. As an adult, I want to see what the common person was going through. I want to see the non-magical side of the rebellion. I want to see the war of the Star Wars, and this is that. And it's so good. It gets me so excited.
I'm reminded, so I was working at the movie theater in my small town where I grew up, and this is a very extreme example of what this is, but there were a bunch of kids who came in with their dad to see Inglourious Bastards. It was right around that time. It was like opening weekend for that movie. And I remember the kids coming in being super excited. Like they were they had talked about the trailer. They were talking about they wanted to see like the blood and guts. They wanted to see some like brutal fighting and all that stuff. And I'm like, they got that, but I was like, you guys, I don't like. And I had seen the movie already. We would we would splice the films together and we would watch them. We'd watch them at midnight and make sure everything was good. And I just remember thinking, I was like, my God, you guys are going to be bored out of your minds in this movie. And sure enough, they were. Enough, they were, because like that was always the thing. Like after the movie lets out, you come out, you talk to him, you ask him how it's going.
Yep.
And those kids looked so amped up because they wanted to do anything else. And I'm just like, this movie was not made for you. It's like the marketing got you wrong. And I have to like think about content that I see like that sometimes. Is like, okay, was this made for me? Because I feel like She-Hulk was not made for me. Like I don't feel like I'm the target audience.
I don't know who She-Hulk was made for, and we'll talk about more of that when
that makes it tough. But that makes it kind of tough. It's like I don't know if I'm the target market. Like I feel like I have a slight interest into this, and like I'm getting those little bits and pieces, but for the rest of the show, I've just been like a fucking bored little kid watching Inglourious Bastards for the gore. It's like, nope, this didn't work out for me. Yeah. This is hitting all of like the points that I wanted to see. Like Andor is checking all the boxes so far, which is also why I'm like that much more like eager to see them stick the landing. So it's like first of all, Disney needs a win right now.
Really does.
They really need a win right now. It was like to kind of like keep me on board. Like I really need Star Wars in general. I need to get a win like really bad, because they're coming back from quite a bit of shit. Like Obi-Wan was like a nice little kinda. There was still a lot there that wasn't going to be enough to satisfy like my hatred for like the sequel trilogy and how they did and how they handled all that. The Mandalorian's doing a great job of that.
Mando season 3 is on the horizon.
The trailer for that looks great. Boba Fett was kind of like a hard one, but Andor is like filling all of those spots that I wanted to see, other than it being outside of like the Skywalker saga. Like that's still my number one complaint about Star Wars content right now, is that I want to see them branch away from that era and give us some, or not even away from that era, just have it have absolutely nothing to do with the events of that. But I don't know how you do that inside of like the Skywalker timeline and not have it be some sort of callback to the events that we're already super familiar with. Like I need to be outside of that range. Now I am not considering like the Mandalorian stuff outside of that, because Luke Skywalker is fucking showing up. Like that it just isn't going to work for me. Like I will say again, Mandalorian and Andor are doing great. But it's past time for us to get away from like the established Star Wars universe and start jumping into new stuff. Like that was the biggest mistake that the sequel trilogy made. It's just like, let's not make this a sequel trilogy. It's not Star Wars 7, 8, and 9. This is a new Star Wars trilogy. This is something completely different. Let's dive into that. Like, because
I agree, and they're doing that with things like the Acolyte and some other things coming up.
Yeah, they're diving into that, and supposedly Rian Johnson still has a trilogy that's going to kind of get farther away from like the Skywalker stuff. I don't know about that, but I would be far more interested to see a Rian Johnson trilogy that he helmed like throughout the entire period.
Like, I agree that he started instead of coming in the middle and they say make it your own, and that doesn't make sense. Yeah, I agree.
It comes down to that like single person, one hand on the wheel
One
like,
hand on
theory.
the story. I agree. I do agree with that, and I agree he got the short end of the stick there. I think the reason Andor and Bad Batch and Clone Wars work
That Batch
so
is another
much
good one. Yep.
is because they are in that gray zone. Yes, it's during the Skywalker saga, but they're in that gray zone that we haven't seen a lot of, the zone between episode 3 and episode 4. Rogue One, if when people were talking about, oh, this is a movie that's going to span maybe the 72 hours before A New Hope, okay, that doesn't sound very exciting, but it was so damn good. And this is going to cover the years between 3 and 4, and it's not about Obi. How crazy is it that the shows me and you like the most? I liked Obi-Wan, but the shows me and you like the most are not the shows with Boba Fett and Obi-Wan in it. Can you believe that? That's so bizarre. And maybe that's a testament to how royally they fucked up. But Andor is fantastic, and I can feel that it's written by the same guy that did Rogue One. I can feel that it's shot and directed by the same people, and it looks good. It's not using the volume, it's using sets, it's on location, and it feels like it's on location and using sets. It just looks good. Looks so good. It looks like a movie. And they've always been saying, this Disney Plus shit, it's not going to be made for TV. It's going to be movie quality. And this might be one of the first times that I feel like that's the case, because it really does. Doesn't feel like they're cutting corners. It feels like these are lived-in environments. And holy shit, we're 4 episodes in, and we haven't gone to Tatooine. Oh my God, I didn't think it was possible. You know? I mean...
Oh my God, that was like the first thing that Cece said when we were watching it. She's just like, oh my God, we're not on a desert planet. We're
not on a desert planet, and we're not on Tatooine. That's crazy. I didn't think they could pull it off.
I was a little sad that it wasn't on Braca, because I was like,
yeah,
okay,
I know.
we are right around,
that's
and
what the case was.
We're hanging right around Cal Kestis timeline. I'm like, okay,
right, and
it would still be really cool to see him. Like, if there was going to be a Jedi that shows up, I want it to be Cal Kestis. I'd give them a pass for that, because we're talking about a Jedi who is not part of like that established Star Wars canon. Like yes, he is considered canon, just because he was like so far away from everything, and Saw Gerrera made an appearance in the game. But
trying to think where Fallen Order would be. It would be exactly during this. Would it be a little farther in the future from this?
Fallen Order was 5 years after the Purge.
Okay, and this is what?
This is like, I think
this
is
is 5 years before Rogue One. So
I think it's so this would be 15-ish, 12 to 15-ish years after the Purge. Well, like they gave us a year range. They gave us a year range. Andor timeline, what was it? It was like 5 BBY, I think is what it was.
Yeah, that's 5 years before Rogue One.
Yeah, it was BBY 5. So this is 5 years before A New Hope. This is before the battle of Yavin, which is the end of A New Hope.
And the game Fallen Order is how many years before A New Hope? Do you know?
It's like, I don't know, like
how old 5?
How old was Luke in A New Hope? It's like,
oh, well, I guess that makes sense. Sure. Okay. All right. So unless he dies in Fallen Order 2, he could likely be out there. Yeah.
Yeah, like during the events of Fallen Order, Luke is like 5 years old.
That's true.
Like,
although, wouldn't it be crazy if he did have an appearance in a show like this? Well, he doesn't take out his lightsaber once. Like it's just his character, like helping the rebellion.
I think that would make the most sense. It's like, because he wouldn't want to do that. Like Cal Kestis would be like, yeah, I'm absolutely not taking out the lightsaber. It's a dead giveaway of what's going on.
He's just a dude and his droid.
I'm expecting to see him using a blaster in the second game, honestly. Like I expect to see a blaster in there.
Well, but if I don't want cameos in this show. Clearly, this show has a vision. Clearly, this show is not relying on tropes or relying on cliches or relying on wink, wink, hint, hint. It was 4 episodes of solid storytelling. And if it's not up to your pace, maybe wait a while so you can binge it. which is fine. If that's not who you are and you're not a week to week type of person, I understand. I hate doing it too. I'd rather binge it. And maybe those type of people would like this show better when they can binge through it instead of not as much happened in this episode. And I got to wait I don't know if I want to wait another week. For me, I thought this was amazing storytelling. I agree with Derpy. As the fan of Star Wars, I must say this is different than anything we've seen. I think
look at the praise. Like, look at the praise. It's like, we are going so much more different than what Star Wars is known to be. Yes. And it's resonating great. Like, this is what we have been asking for.
But it's different, but it feels familiar. It feels like this is it. This is it. This is what we've heard about. We just haven't seen it. We've always seen the fanfare at the end, or when the big, people join these people. We didn't see the background, and it is compelling. We don't need an origin story for everything. I don't care about the origin story of Han Solo's dice in the car. I don't care about that. But this is a story that I feel invested in, and I do really like where it's going. And so, 4 episodes in, I'm here for it.
And that familiarity, that familiar feeling might be the antithesis to my point of like seeing stuff outside of the Skywalker era. It's I could end up eating my words in this Acolyte show where they finally decided to stray away, and it's like none of this feels like Star Wars or something like that, which I hope isn't the case. I don't think it will be, but I don't think not necessarily familiar to the time frame, but familiar to the franchise, familiar to the Star Wars world. And seeing it, but again, like that success of Rogue One is like seeing more of it being like, hey, we're gonna like really hammer it home. It's like, these were everyday people. This is the kind of power that you wield when your government or your leaders are going astray.
I'm excited for the Acolyte because we got Squid Games actor coming in. I loved him in Squid Games. I think he's going to be great. I think he's going to be a huge a star in America. Not to say he's not already a huge star. I'm not an asshole. I believe he's a huge star in South Korea. I think Squid Games
that's
has
just
brought him
reality.
across. Yeah, but a lot of
That's
people. There was a person that interviewed him on the red carpet in an American premiere, and they were like, "So how does it feel to have your first big break?" And the dude was kind, but it was like, he's huge in South Korea.
I've kind of already made it,
yeah. But coming over, I'm excited, and I'm not saying that from we're better than you are.
He handled it well.
He did. But I could feel it. It's like, he's already a big deal.
Yeah, there was a little bit of resentment there, but I think that was deserved. Like, that was a dumb question. It's like, clearly that reporter hadn't done any research,
right?
And
didn't know who he was,
and like hammered it home in a really dumb way. But
regarding the Acolyte and these future properties that are outside of the Skywalker saga, there's one thing to keep in mind, and it's regarding this recent Game of Thrones show. I was watching some behind the scenes and reading an article about this recent Game of Thrones show, which is getting all of the praise it deserves. It's an amazing show. I don't know if you're caught up to episode 7, but I absolutely love this show. But I read an article about the show that they scrapped. And if you remember, they had a totally different show with Naomi Watts in it. They spent something like 10-15 million on the first pilot episode. They watched it and they canned it. And the reason, according to this interview, this is the reason they canned it. The people they showed it to, HBO executives were like, we fucked up so bad on Game of Thrones season 8. We need to do something totally different from Game of Thrones in the Game of Thrones universe. They showed the pilot to people, and people said, it's too different. It's too different. Yes, you fucked up, but we still want something with Game of Thrones vibes. We don't want something so far off the map that it doesn't feel like Game of Thrones. So they scrapped it. They made this show based off previous stuff, and it's doing so well. So yes, I want Star Wars outside of the Star Wars saga, but I don't want them to feel like they have to go so far in the opposite direction that it doesn't feel like Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And, yeah. And I mean, there's a very real risk of that. I think it really comes down to like, I think it comes down to who's in charge. And right now, who's in charge is, I feel like we're in good hands with Dave Filoni. I feel like that's I feel like if there is going to be one hand on the wheel, he's a good firm hand on the wheel as far as Star Wars is concerned. So I can look.
He's certainly well versed.
I can look at Star Wars more optimistically at this point still than I can at like the Marvel franchise, which is unfortunate. And I'm not saying that because of She-Hulk. She-Hulk was by far not at all the catalyst for those feelings. It was. Yeah, there have been plenty of other properties that have been kind of doing the same thing. They've been sort of hammering that. Phase 4 in general has been what's kind of like making me lose it for the Marvel cinematic universe a little bit. But yeah, Star Wars have still got some hope. Yeah. And yeah, when shows like this come out, I'm like,
Star Wars have definitely stumbled with the sequel trilogy, with the Han Solo film, with the stuff that they've scrapped. I mean, Star Wars felt like Sony for a second there when Sony was like, we're going to make an Aunt May movie and we're going to make a Mary Jane and we're going to make a Sinister Six. And Star Wars was the same way when Disney first got it. We're going to make a Han Solo movie. We're going to make a Yoda movie. We're going to do this trilogy. We're going to, and it was like, stop. Oh my God, stop.
No, a Yoda movie cannot happen. It cannot happen.
I don't want origin films for every single person we've ever seen in a Star Wars movie. Stop it. Just push the brakes. Yeah. Go back.
I think we're in an optimistic point here. I can look at the future of Star Wars brightly.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to continue watching this show. Like this one's a good one.
It's the one I had the least expectations for this year. And honestly forgot about it most of the year. And then the end of the summer was coming and I'm like, oh wait, Andor's coming.
They weren't throwing Andor in my face like they were every other piece of like Disney property. Like dude, fucking She-Hulk there like shoving down my throat. I see like 6 or 7 posts of that like per day on social media showcasing like little bits of She-Hulk. It's like, dude, fucking nothing's happened. Like the latest couple episodes have been like the first ones where it's like, oh, we got a plot now. We got some action happening. And honestly, I didn't even dislike the latest episode. The latest episode was like, all right, cool. We're addressing some of my questions now. But I think a big thing is that when a franchise or when like a fandom, let's call it that, like when a fandom's like flagship content. And like in the Star Wars world, like the flagship content is always going to be like the TV shows and the movies. Mm-hmm. When you're seeing those going down a road that you don't like there is a certain amount of instinct that I have to like stick with it, like hang in there, keep that support going, because if you take the support away, like it'll either die or it'll get worse. We're not in that kind of a situation. We're not in a dead situation when it comes to Marvel and Star Wars, because they're almost too big to fail at this point with the amount of money that's been put into them with all these future projects. Yeah. Like we're going to see a lot of the stuff that was promised come out, and like kind of how the future projects are revealed is just going to like steer the ship to a new direction, because some of these are just so big to where like it doesn't matter what the pre-reviews are, people are still going to go and see it for themselves no matter what. Yeah. Like, and like it's going to be tough to get away from that, from that being a thing that's like a driving force for continuing this content. But quality over quantity. And so far, Star Wars hasn't really been pushing stuff out quite like the Marvel Cinematic Universe has, because Marvel is pushing out movies, trying to continue Phase 4. They're trying to push out shows. They've got a lot more stuff lined up on the docket over the next few years.
So much.
We don't have nearly as many announcements. We don't have nearly as many announcements for Star Wars now. And I know that Star Wars has a bunch of stuff announced, but it's not necessarily in the same vein as MCU, because Star Wars is like all the Star Wars content isn't pushing like a singular story.
Right.
It's like
That's
some of the
true. They're
Marvel
not
stuff,
all in the same time. They're not all going
Yeah.
in the same direction. That's true.
some of the Marvel stuff isn't as well. Like I know we've got like Groot's mini series.
Yeah.
We've got like the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, shit like that.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be some offshoots, the What If series as well.
Right.
But we even saw the What If series kind of like steering some main in canon Marvel content. Star Wars is like, okay, we're going to do the Acolyte, which is like forever before all the Star Wars content. We're going to do the Mandalorian. We've got an anime series where the entire show, none of the stories are connected to each other whatsoever. Like these are just one-offs that we're just throwing out there. And some of them like being like, this is what God give us this is what we want to see. Like, here we go right now.
Yeah.
And then touching on like characters who actually we want to see continued stories about. It's like we're going to get the Ahsoka series. We're going to see the Bad Batch, which is jumping into completely new territory for the most part. It's like, yeah, we're still touching off of the Clone Wars, but those guys aren't connecting to like Luke and all them. It's like, if anything, they had a loose tie to like the mainstream Star Wars content, which was the Clone Wars series. It's like the Clone Wars series is criminally underwatched by mainstream Star Wars fans. Like, so like it's hard to call that like a main piece of like the Star Wars canon, but it's one of the most important pieces of the Star Wars canon, in my opinion. Like, so I absolutely recommend that any true Star Wars fans like sit down and watch that show. So there's a lot of really good shit in there that is also really pertaining to a lot of the shit that they're releasing here in the future. Like they're calling back to a lot of it. And the Rebels show for that matter too. I don't hold that one quite as high regard as the Clone Wars, but the Rebels series is also important as well. It's like Star Wars is, yes, like we don't have like an infinity saga for Star Wars. You know, we've got the Skywalker saga. They're still touching on that a little bit, but it didn't have quite like it doesn't have quite the same feeling because like it was so stretched out. Like there's such a long period of time. And also like when we saw the prequel series, we saw it leading up to the end of Return of the Jedi. We're talking about a 6-movie arc here. We're not talking about 20 some movies that were all leading to like one fruitious moment.
Yeah.
Like it was like, well, we were hoping that it was going to be 6 movies and done. And then they're like, oh, let's tack on 3 more. And it was like, no, this is absolutely not the direction to go. It's like, so the standards for like continuing this one singularity isn't quite as like the demand isn't quite as strong for me. It's almost non-existent for me in comparison to the MCU. Like I want to see the Star Wars content bouncing around all over the place because I just want you to tell me good stories.
And they did say back in 2019 that they were going to slow down, that they had realized they were pushing Star Wars too quickly and they were going to pump the brakes on this. And
perfect.
I mean, it feels that sequel trilogy does kind of feel so long ago, and COVID has compounded that. We
haven't had a Star Wars movie
right
since.
And not to say that all the Star Wars content they've put out since then have been great, but I do feel like we're slowly going in a new creative direction. And I know we need to wrap this show up, but one thing on She-Hulk,
we've rambled quite long enough.
I don't want to go off on a whole rant on She-Hulk, but I think the reason why it's disconnecting the most is because it's the most sitcom of anything we've seen so far. We have been programmed, especially our generation. You know, just look at regular TV programming. The Star Wars that the Star Trek that I grew up on was Star Trek Voyager and Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And that's when they started getting away from one episode story arcs and going into season and multi-episode story arcs. And TV in general has shifted to you're either a sitcom or you're a multi-episode arc type show. And She-Hulk, in comparison to everything else we've seen, is the most sitcom. There's these little teeny things that are hinting towards a broader storyline, but we're like, 7-8 episodes in? And for the most part, they've been very, singular episodes. They don't feel like... It
reminds me of like the Law and Order effect.
Correct.
Like Law and Order, when in the first several seasons of that show, it was always a new plot. It was always a new plot. And then there were tiny callbacks in every single episode to stuff that people who've been watching the show already knew, but were not so big that it was like, oh, if you hadn't seen the other episodes, you wouldn't know what was going on. It's like, okay,
Right.
well, they don't know about Benson's issue with his family, so we're gonna spoon feed you that a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he's his family life's kind of bitchy. It's like, but for people who have been watching the show for a while, they're like, oh, this is still going on. It was like, shit. It was like, here we go. But like, it not reliant on you knowing every other piece of the content. And I would be okay with that for She-Hulk if it was a longer series.
Right.
But we don't have that many episodes.
Right.
And
We
don't
know
have
the
another
end
season
is
like right around the
coming.
corner. Yeah.
We know the end is coming, and we're like, is the show even started yet? Like, we're just,
Yeah.
doesn't feel like, you know, like there's always like, oh, okay, yeah, we had to do this. But now the story is starting. It is yet to feel like the story is starting. It feels like a sitcom. It doesn't feel very connected. And it doesn't feel like day one have to see it. If you see it a couple days later, you're not like, oh, you know, I got to see this. You know, I can't wait till next week. Whereas most other programming we've gotten from the MCU has been, you got to see it. It's how far into the story is this episode going to propel you? You know, so that's why I feel disconnected from She-Hulk.
And by my count, we've only got 2 episodes left.
Yeah. Can you believe that? It doesn't even feel like, and I mean, and then the only thing we know is coming is a cameo from Daredevil. And based on the series so far, it's probably going to be the most throwaway cameo we've ever seen. I don't expect
Certainly
big
feels
things.
that way.
I don't expect this great 2-episode arc to finish off the series. Certainly doesn't feel deserved. But you know,
meanwhile, we're jumping into Andor, where we've got 12 40-minute episodes versus She-Hulk's 9 20-minute episodes that still are just now like really coming into a plot that really has any interest for us.
Hinting at a plot where we've covered so much ground in 4 episodes of Andor, and it's so rich, you know, so it does feel like a sitcom, and I believe that was the purpose. But that's why I'm just not as connected to it.
But again, I'd be fine with that if we had more content. Like if more was coming, it's like, hey, if you wanted to tell me that you guys had like 16 episodes of this show coming out of She-Hulk coming out, I'd be fine with you burning like half of them on like shit about her personal life and like woman struggles and shit like that. Like that'd be fine. It's like, but you guys, like you're running out of time to give us a reason to really like get invested in this show, because so far they just feel like and you're doing a recap on every episode. It's like nothing fucking happens. Like it's 20 minutes. Like I can remember what happened of 20 minutes of a show.
And
like, why are you giving me a recap every time?
Feige said that these shows were going to be more about character development and more like building these characters before they show back up in movies. But there hasn't been a lot of that either. This isn't like the character development we saw in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You know, that plot by the end of it might not have been that monumental in the MCU as a whole, but at least there was a plot. You know, there was a purpose to that show. This show feels purposeless. And from what I've heard, what this show is supposedly supposed to lead into, I'm like, what? Like, I'm interested in that. I have no interest in the current show because it just feels so aimless. And if that's where it's going, I'm predicting it's going to be so abrupt, and then the show's going to be done. I can't imagine. There's only 2 episodes left. Are you serious? That doesn't.
We're on episode 7, are we not?
It doesn't feel like it. I believe we are. I just threw that number out there. She-Hulk. I believe we're on episode 7.
The episode 7 was the retreat, and there's 9 episodes of this show.
All right. Well, I'm going to be in New York, so I don't know if I'll even see it this week. I might see it on the plane ride back. I'm not, but I am, what is it? What day does Andor come out? That's on Wednesday.
Wednesdays, I believe.
Is the first day of New York Comic Con, and I'm carving out time in my day to see Andor. In fact, I might just wake up and watch it first before going to the con floor because I can't wait to see the next episode of that. So anyway, we've talked about this enough. We've been here for an hour and a half. I still got to pack. Any final thoughts, or are you satisfied from what we've talked about so far?
I'm in a good spot right now. I think I'm just like we went farther off than what I think we needed to anyway. But
I agree. We're just speaking words in the cosmos right now.
Right. I'm I'm so much more optimistic about Andor than I am about Marvel, and at this point, that's just kind of where I'm at. Which I
Then
thought,
again,
which I
we
also think
started
is
this
fine.
episode
Like,
watching. We started this episode watching Black Panther, and I think we're both excited for that. So it's not like MCU doesn't have any good things coming down the chain.
No, certainly. But again, like kind of what I was saying earlier is like I don't think She-Hulk was made for me either. Like I don't know that I was the target market. So like
One could
me not
argue who is the target market.
me not resonating for it like right off of the bat is kind of okay. Like if this show is more towards like a casual Marvel viewer, and this isn't gonna, and her debut into like the greater MCU universe is not going to be like that immediate. That's a good question, but like they're also like there's some expectations, and you still want to make something good. So
Right.
I'm excited to see where Andor goes. I'm crazy excited for that. Stoked to see Wakanda Forever. Big time hype for that movie. And then I will watch She-Hulk as it goes through. And honestly, I think now is when I'm really going to start binging through for House of the Dragon, so I can actually get up to date on that one.
Yeah, so good.
I'm really behind there. I need to get going. So, but yeah, that kind of leaves it for me. Hit the like button if you like this video. Hit the dislike button if you didn't. Be honest, we can take it. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't have to worry about missing out on any of our future broadcasts, or as well as any other content that we might throw out there. And hit that bell notification. We go live at random points. We never really know when it's going to go on. If something's crazy good to talk about, we're going to throw it on there. You can find us at Nerfherders Assemble on all social media, at Nerfherders Crew on Twitter. Tweet me. Be a part of the conversation. Keep hitting us up with those comments. Thank you, Derpy Gaming, for being a part of the conversation today. I will shout your name out until we get too many people to shout out, but we're gonna keep doing that. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Until next time, have a good one.
See ya.
Peace.